welcome back, another video. Behind me is I think it's a 2014 Mercedes Sprinter Jayco Optimum. So it's a single cab chassis Mercedes Sprinter, and then it's had essentially like a big fiberglass body put on the back. Also, don't mind the mess, I'm actually late getting this video and we've already started ripping the vehicle apart and running cables and whatnot. Customers came to us, the van had two 280 amp hour lithium batteries, which are these two watt cycles. So they've got 560 amp hours. We've taken them out because what I've done is charged them and then balanced them, and now they are ready to go into the battery box, which is just over here, CNC cut. We've just sealed it up, so it is an airtight box, therefore complies with your AS3001 standards. Basically, van had no inverter. Van had just one small solar panel on the roof. It is got the slide out bed in this section, so the bed moves out. The batteries were just in here. Like I said, something a little bit different. What we are doing here is a Victron 5K VA MultiPlus at 12 volts. So this is a new one, and this is the biggest one that Victron makes. So it's a 4,000 watt pure sine wave inverter, and then it's got a peak power of 9,000 watts. It also charges at 220 amps from shore power. And now these guys have a very fancy 4,000 watt generator, which is an onboard generator. So they will have a selector switch to select whether they want to use AC shore power or the generator power to charge their system, which should be able to charge at the full 220 amps. So they have opted for the big boy inverter. We've run all our cables. There's a lot of stuff going on here. We've got AC, we've got generator cables, we've got a new screen cables. So the original screen is this one. The tank monitors on this were ancient and weren't compatible with the Victron screen. So I'll show you what we're doing there in a second. HDMI extensions, power for the screen, 240 to tap into the 240 stuff up here, replacing the screen here. This switch to water pump, so we're just adding a water pump switch. But yeah, this looks like a mess, but it's gonna all work out in the end. As you'll see here, we've installed two new water tank sensors because, like I said, the old water tank sensors were ancient. On a lot of the systems that run these older screens, they're like a C-Tech screen. A lot of those tank sensors, if they go into like a BM Pro, like a J35, they'll be compatible, but these ones were just so old that they weren't compatible. In those tanks that you just saw, we've installed two resistive sensors like these. We've sealed them up with glands like this and sealant, and then they've got like they twist in. So they're what the two tanks inside will be monitored with. We have another Bluetooth Mopeka tank sensor with the shroud for it, for another water tank underneath the rear of the vehicle, which you will see just there. So that one will be Bluetooth. Because it's gonna have some Bluetooth sensors, Bluetooth dongle for the Victron Cerbo to give it a little bit of better power. We're also gonna be doing inside temperature, outside temperature, and then another two Bluetooth temperatures, which are a Ruuvi temperature sensor, fridge, freezer. This one is a Mopeka. They do make some really good Bluetooth sensors for tanks and gas bottles like LPGs. Usually, I've always hate battery sensors, always go hardwired. The tank underneath, the only way to get a hardwired one in there would have been to drop the whole thing, so we've decided to just opt for the battery operated Bluetooth one. And then the Ruuvi one, the fridge wasn't super compatible with running wires directly into it, with them being sealed, and same with the freezer to run there. So we're just gonna run the battery operated ones in there. The inside temperature sensor and the outside temperature sensor, they will be hardwired because they can go straight into the Cerbo. Other things, two 50 amp Victron DC chargers with the ignition wire hooked up. Now on the roof, it has just the single solar. We're going to be popping one of these bad boys in, and it's going to be looking after this panel that arrived today. Sunpower, 410 watt panel, VMP of 35 volts at 11 amps. So 410 watts, we should probably, once it converts, be seeing roughly an absolute maximum of like 25, 30 amps, probably not 30, more so 25 on a fantastic day, but the panel is black, so it will get warm. But therefore, the hotter it gets, the sufficient it gets. Cerbo is going in with a 7-inch screen. Those Bluetooth extenders just plug straight into the USBs on the Cerbo. Super handy. And then just our 500 amp shunt. Now, because it's a 5 kVA MultiPlus, got to do stuff a little bit different. So instead of running one 70mm cable like we do for the 3 kVA MultiPlus, with the 5 kVA MultiPlus, you've got to run two 70mm squared, like 2 cores for the active, 2 cores for the neutral. As where with the 3 kVA, you can get away with running 1. What we're going to do, something a little bit different here, is run 2 300 amp manual reset circuit breakers for like the 2 actives, and then the 2 grounds will go to the shunt, and then this 150 amp circuit breaker, we're going to run a 50mm from here to another MIDI fuse panel to then look after those other circuits that we saw under the bed. These guys are also going to be getting 3 external light dimmers, 2 underneath the awning, 1 on the rear, 1 on the side. They're also getting a Starlink Mini output on the side end of the roof. I think that's it. Me and the boys will be in here tomorrow, so we'll try and give you an update on how we're going, we're tracking, and show you how to do some things a little bit differently, like the 5 kVA MultiPlus, like the Starlink Mini with the converter, all that sort of stuff. Okay, the Jayco Optimum is now finished. A lot of work went into this one. The electrical system is quite comprehensive. There's a couple of things which are very specific to these customers, like the 5 kVA inverter. They already had their lithium, so we use them. Still put in a box, going to give them a certificate. All the AS3001 labels are all done. We changed the solar around a little bit just because it was going to be hard to fit what we had originally quoted. So the solar came down a little bit from what the original plan was, but I just drove the car and it's getting 100 amps while you're driving, even accounting for some voltage drop and some conversion losses through the DC chargers. With the solar panel on the roof, you're still getting 100 amps while you're driving down the road, which is pretty awesome. Cerbo screens up here right in front of you as you walk in the door. We have done some very interesting other little additions with like Starlink, switching, a couple of things which I'll show you in a sec. Now, if you're here to watch Victron system, watch the first section, well, watch the section that I'm about to talk about. If you are here to look at Starlink Mini installation and DC converter, what we do. If you're here to look at exterior lighting and then also having exterior lighting as a security function, I filmed a really good video which will pop in last night, so you can actually see how much light they put out. They've got an onboard generator, which I will go through that in the Victron system side of the video. If you're here to look at some very niche stuff like the exterior lighting and the Starlink Mini stuff, skip to the end, we'll make a chapter for that. Right now I'm just going to try and go through the Victron system as quick as possible. So like I said, when we walk in, we have our Victron system here with everything all programmed up. We've got 2 Victron 50 amp DC chargers, 1, 2. We've got a 30 amp solar controller with a 400 watt panel with a 5 kVA inverter at 12 volts. So it's a 220 amp charger, onboard generator, which is a 4,000 watt generator. Works absolutely awesome. I'll show you that in a sec. We've got transfer switch to select from generator or shore power, the Cerbo to talk to the screen, solar main switch. Now, we've run 2 70mm cables to the 5 kVA, both running through 300 amp manual reset circuit breakers. Circuit breaker, another one to look after this fuse panel, and then these MIDI fuses look after the bigger loads, and then we go into some of the original stuff plus some stuff we've added on the smaller fuse panel. AS3001 compliant battery box with ventilation. Now, another thing that we've added, tanks. So we've got 2 freshwater tanks and a wastewater tank underneath, and then we've also done 4 temperature sensors. So we've got inside temperature, outside temperature, fridge and freezer. Now, fridge and freezer are Bluetooth sensors. They're the Ruuvis. The inside and outside are hardwired, and then the 2 tank sensors, I showed you them, the resistive ones, and then the Mopeka one for their grey water. Exterior lighting, awning lights, rear lights, driver's side lights. Starlink switch here. Now, inside here, little Victron 1224-5, so it's 5 amp output rated at 24 volts essentially, so it's a 120 watt rated unit. Enough to run a Starlink Mini quite cheap 5-year warranty, you know they work. That's why we use them. Flick the switch, green light comes on. They have a Starlink just outside the skylight, so they can jump on the bed, stick the Starlink mount onto the roof, plug it in with a 1 meter cable, and away they go. And then on the exterior, we've given them another one. So the exact same mount is on the roof, and they can use the cable that the Starlink comes with because it's running through the DC converter. It runs at 32 volts DC because you can actually turn those converters up, and you get no worries about voltage drops running through a 15-20 meter cable. Another thing that we've added is some of our element 3 reading lamps, USB-A and USB-C on the back side. We've also added another 2 in the bed area. Onboard generator is one way of charging and running the van. Second way is shore power. That's what this selector switch is for. So you got generator and shore. Now, generator control is off this controller on the side of the bed, and it'll come up to here on the Cerbo screen. So our inverter is on. I'm going to just change it from 10 to 13 amps to try and get the generator cranking. What I'll do, I only put a couple of liters of fuel in this. There we go. That's the generator on, and you'll see, yep, 240 volts AC. Okay, now what I'll do is I'm just going to flick our switch. So at the moment, it's in the off position, nothing's running. We flick that to the generator, wait about 10 to 15 seconds. The inverter's just clicked over and seen the generator power, and that is cranking 160 amp, 170 amps into the batteries, 2,500 watts. I'll put a link to this generator here. We didn't supply it, they got it installed before we did the install, but it's quite a good bit of kit because then you can go through batteries at 14 volts. Yeah, you can see a host of information, and then on the Cerbo screen you can see exactly how much you're charging. But if we do this right, and we're on shore power, where you click that off, the generator's just gone back down to idle mode, and we're no longer charging. So then when they click into shore power, they can flick it across. Happy days. This RCD here does the input, so both generator and shore power, and then the RCD up here does the outputs. So the whole van runs off grid and runs off the inverter system or the 240, and then plug in and run the Genie, flick the switch, and then the inverter worries about the rest. Charges, runs with your AC loads. If you want to see the inverters running AC loads, go look back at like maybe the Jayco video. We put one of the inverters through a real good pressure test with the kettle and stuff. But yeah, this is a Jayco Optimum. Really good setup. These guys are going to be able to go off grid for a while. Yes, they don't have heaps of solar, but they got plenty of power. And if worst case, you can always add in a solar for them later down the track if they need it. Thanks for watching the video. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in here because we see this all the time and it frustrates the bejeebers out of me. Yes, people want to get good amount of alternator charge off their vehicle. The body of this is a Sprinter, so the alternator in this is quite big. It's a 240 or 200 amp alternator, I believe. So it's running 2 DC chargers, both 50 amps, so that's 100 amps of DC charge. Now, we've hooked up the ignition wire on these and we've turned off all the input voltage looking settings of the DC chargers, because when you've got 2 or more DC chargers and you don't run the ignition wire, the DC chargers will always look at the incoming voltage under load of another charger. So therefore, if there's no ignition wire, they might think that the car is not on when in fact it is, or you'll get the problem that I've seen many times in the past where you can be driving down the highway and charging both chargers, no worries, but when you pull up to the lights, one charger turns off because it sees the voltage under load from the starter battery and thinks that the car's not on. So then when you're sitting at the lights, you're only charging off 1, and then you're driving in and you're charging off 2, and then sometimes when you stop, it'll drop down to like 9 volts, and then they'll both turn off, and then only one will turn on. It's just an absolute nightmare. So what I'll show you is start this car, and we are charging. Both chargers are kicking in. we're getting in 1000 watts of charge, which is roughly 80 odd amps. Both our DC chargers have got the little blue light on to say that they're in bulk mode. We've got a little bit of solar coming in as well, so it'll be just under 80 amps coming in. Now let's turn the car off. We come back up here, both chargers straight off, 0 watts. Solar's still trickling in a little bit. That's how you wire up 2 or more DC chargers, and that's how it should always be done. I'm not here to rouse on anyone, but I'm also here to protect the customers, because we see it so often, and it's not a very nice feeling when they come into our workshop and go, oh, we've been ripped off and we didn't get the system that we wanted. I feel bad for charging the customers, whatever it is, to make it done properly. So if you are getting big systems like this installed, please make sure that the person that's doing the install knows what they're doing in regards to the whole installation. Again, going back to our popular YouTube video, the AS3001 installation laws, the laws are designed to get rid of the cowboys, but unfortunately we don't see anyone policing them. I've never had anyone come into our workshop to police them. I'd love someone to, because I don't care, because we do everything by the book. But yeah, the rules are there, and the only time that the customer ever hears about the rules, or the laws, sorry, is if something goes wrong and the insurance company throws a book at them. So I can't stress it enough. Doing these systems, especially with Victron gear, it's not for the faint-hearted. There's a lot to it. Just be mindful, please. That's all I ask. Thank you. So on the exterior of the van, customers wanted exterior lighting. What I'm going to do is show you how they work now. Now this is a very, very good safety feature. It's pretty easy to do. So we've got 2 on the awning side. We've got 1 light at the rear and then 1 light on the driver's side. Now, when we come inside, I'll just turn on a light or 2 so you can see. These are our dimmer switches. So these are rotary. Now, what I've got here is a little remote, which is linked up to this little black device on the right. They have 2 receivers they get with their kit. Now, they can turn all the lights on those 3 dimmers. So one of those dimmers controls each side. So that's why there's 3, because there's awning, rear, drivers. They can turn all the lights on before they go to bed, come onto their receiver and press off. And then that way, if they hear something outside or someone's trying to ransack or literally anything, for any reason you want to turn on the outside lights, you have this at your bed and you press on and all the lights will come on. All of them. This is the one on the driver's side. And now I'll show you the dimming. Obviously, this is our amber setting. I'm gonna turn the dimmer anti-clockwise and that dims. I'll turn it back clockwise, okay? Now that's full brightness. Double click the dimmer, turn it clockwise, and we've got our color change. So this is our cool white. We can turn it back and mix both together, and that gives you a pretty close to warm white light out where in the seating area. Again, double click it. I can leave it on this setting with the 2 mixed together and I can turn it right down. Single click turns them off. Turn them on with a single click, and then double click changes the function. So what I'll do is I'm gonna turn them on to cool white all the way and show you how bright these things are. Keeping in mind on the awning there's 2 on this side, but even when there's 1, they are super bright if you don't have a dimmer hooked up to them. So that's off, that's on. And then even on amber, that's at full brightness on the amber setting. Lights up the whole under the awning area and back, oh, I don't know, a good 10 meters, probably 15 as well. I think it's fantastic safety feature for almost everyone. Caravan, camper, small van, doesn't matter. Very handy safety feature.